You remember when I said I was bored when I was making that robot toilet thing? Well, now I'm really bored. A bit over a month ago, our school told our year that, hey, we're not going to give you any work, so you guys can just focus on your UCAS thing. And for those that don't know, UCAS is just the university application process for the UK. So I first thought, okay, well, fair enough. And they also wanted us to submit a draft for a personal statement, so I worked, I don't know, for a week and then sent that in. But the reason I'm complaining about this is that was a month ago. I mean, no feedback, no corrections, nothing. I knew that our school didn't really care about us. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I wouldn't care about myself either. But you know, if it's still school season and people gotta apply to university, you know, you gotta give them something. There's really only so much of your application that you can actually, you know, fill in. So anyways, I was looking for something to do, and what was I gonna do? I was thinking of showing you my step-by-step thought process of how I look at a new Arduino project. So if you've ever thought of building robots or getting into Arduino and you just really didn't know where to start, or you were a bit intimidated by, you know, this whole thing, I hope that this video encourages you, maybe at least show you that this whole thing isn't as daunting as you might expect. Like, you really don't have to be some sort of tech wizard to do this. Anyone can, because it's open source, anyone can look it up online. Today we're going to look at motion sensors. Ooh. It seemed cool. I haven't tried it before, and it only had 3 pins, so it looked simple enough. So see you in 1 or 2 days, depending on when it comes. Hey, look what just came from the mail. Oh geez, that's tiny. Alright, so first things first. Yeah, like I said, there's 3 pins. But it seems like, yeah, it has the 3 pins, but it doesn't really say which is for which. Right, no worries, we can probably look at this online. So step 1 of this whole process is obviously just to get the hardware. Oh, wait.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Okay, so now that we do have all the hardware, I just need to figure out what each of these do. I'm pretty sure that 2 of these pins are for the power and another is for the signal. That information would be online. Okay, again, I'm just trying to show you that this isn't as hard as you might think. So you just go into something like Google, type whatever you need. In this case, it's Arduino motion sensor. And there we go, just go into any website, it should have what I need. Alright, yeah, and here's an image, so it says ground output power, and that's exactly what we needed. Step 2 of this process is just to connect all the hardware together. Using the information that we just got, we just need to connect the ground pin to the ground pin, the power to the voltage pin, and the output pin to the signal pin. That sounds a lot harder than it actually is, let me just show you. Actually, before we proceed, let me just explain what each of these pins actually are. Output is pretty self-explanatory. It just carries the information from the sensor to the Arduino board. For ground and voltage pins, again, I'm not an expert on any of this, but you can think of these as positive and negative. I typically use these sections, so basically on a breadboard, all of these pins and all of these pins, and then each of these pins like this, they're all connected. So I would typically connect all the voltage to this positive, and then the ground to all of these negative ones. I'm not really sure if that's the proper way to use it, but that's just how I do. To get started, let's first connect the power and the ground. You can actually connect external power sources to the breadboard and then to the sensors or whatever, but since we don't really need a lot of power, I'm just going to connect it directly onto the board. I'm just putting it out there that you can do that if you want. So if you look closely here, there's a small pin called 5 volts, and all we're going to do is grab a cable and connect that cable to the 5 volts onto the breadboard positive. Since we've connected this 5 volts to this line here, we can just get our power pin and then connect it to pretty much any hole in this line, and these 2 would be connected. So before we do that, we'll quickly do the same with the ground. So you can see there's a small pin called ground here, GND, and all we're going to do is connect the ground. So I'm going to use black. So we connect it like this, and then connect that to the negative. So we have the power and then we have the ground. Using the information online, I'm just going to connect the power pin and the ground pin, whichever these are, and then connect it to these. Okay, so I have this custom cable that connects these to these ones. Actually, the colors on this cable is a bit misleading. I've wired these ones just to tell which is which. So the red is for the power, the black is for the ground, and the green is for the signal. So we're just going to connect the reds to the reds. So just connect it to any on this line, and then the ground pin with this ground pin here. Now that we've paired these, we just have to connect the signal pin to anything. We could connect it to the breadboard, but I'm just going to connect it directly onto the Arduino board. So I'm just going to choose pin number 10. Okay, to summarize, the pins on the sensor, you just connect the ground to the ground, the power to the power, and then the signal to the signal. And that's really all the wiring that you need to do. The last step tends to be the one that scares the most people. And as you might have guessed, it's the code. Honestly, the code is just the language that you speak in order to communicate with the computer. In this case, the computer has a sensor attached to it, which you can ask the Arduino to read values from that sensor. One thing I do have to add is that when you're working with a certain sensor or module, you'll have to install a certain library for that thing. It's not that hard, it's just a bit of extra code. Basically, imagine you're adding some extra vocabulary to the language that you're speaking. So say you already know how to say the phrase, to tell the computer to say the phrase hello whenever the computer is turned on. Instead of saying a phrase when the computer is turned on, you could program it to say a phrase when the sensor detects something. But you don't really need to think too hard about that because this motion sensor doesn't need a library. Right now, I'm just looking at some sample code just to see what I'm up against. It might not seem like it, but it's really simple code. This isn't a coding tutorial, so I'm not going to go much in detail, but all that the code is doing is just reading whether something moved in front of the sensor or not. By the way, if you're asking, yes, it is nighttime. I've been video editing all day, and I just want this over. Now, just to finish off, I've added a small red LED here. It's just to tell me whether the sensor is sensing me or not. And as you can see, the red LED is going on and off like crazy. That's just because it's sensing my hand movement. I've read a bit more into the sensor. Apparently you can change the range from 3 to 7 meters, and you can adjust the time delay from 5 minutes to 3 seconds. At the moment, I have a time delay to 3 seconds. Unfortunately, that's the lowest. Now, for a quick demonstration, you've seen this go on and off so far, but if I keep moving my hand, the cool thing is that the red LED will stay on. So if I keep moving it, then yeah, you can see that the LED stays on. If I stop my hand, then the red LED is gonna turn off in 3 seconds. Yep. So obviously there's a time delay there, but it shouldn't matter too much. I hope that was at least a tiny bit helpful. This was a nice simple project, and it was just a chance for me to show my sort of step-by-step process. I don't know how to end these videos, but I just want to say that these videos are pretty time consuming and they take a lot of work. So I'd appreciate it if you gave a like or a comment, or anyways, goodbye.